All right, we told you we're going to talk a little basketball. Ira Winderman is going to join us for the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat report. We got a lot of things to talk about, actually, because believe it or not, there's a lot of issues going on in the NBA, and that's the part that's actually pretty cool. We got some Heat things to talk about, but more than anything, baby, we're going to talk a little basketball with Ira Winderman next.
Starting in August, longtime Miami Heat insider Ira Winderman joins the Big O Radio Show. Ira will give insight twice a week on your favorite NBA team. Heat fans get the information you crave from one of the best in the business. From weekly appearances to breaking news, join Ira Winderman exclusively on the Big O Show.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
Let's get ready to talk Dolphins football.
Oh, God. Damn.
Heat fans, time for the best insight of your favorite team with insider Ira Winderman, exclusively on the Big O Radio Show. It's the Acura of Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report. Here's Ira Winderman.
I think we got it right there this time around. How you doing, Ira? Good morning, sir.
I'm doing good. I don't know how much Dolphins I can talk. I'll leave that to Omar and Joe Shad on your show. But like you said, interesting times for the NBA. Once that calendar turns August to September, really starts to heat up, and we're getting right back into it.
All right. So, Ira, I think something's really interesting is developing because in life, I've been talking about this with people that we're going to get to a point where a restaurant's not going to allow you in if you're not vaccinated. You're not going to be able to go to a concert if you're not vaccinated. You're not going to be able to do certain things. You're not going to be allowed in certain countries if you're not vaccinated anymore. Well, the NBA has a couple of cities that may not allow players to play if they're unvaccinated. Can you walk us through all of that? And New York or California. New York is more of an issue. You don't go to California as much if you're the Heat, but New York, you are going to go there a couple of times. How much of that is a hurdle for the Heat and the NBA and its players?
Yeah, it's getting interesting. The NBA sent out a memo. I got a copy yesterday of protocols in arenas, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And one of the little paragraphs in there was local ordinances will supersede anything in this missive. And that means in places where employees must be vaccinated to report to work. So far, that involves the Knicks, the Nets, and the Warriors because of a Northern California ordinance. But, it only pertains to players who are employees of those places, not visitors. Just like, let's say a bank or something like that says all employees must be vaccinated. It doesn't mean if you come in to make a deposit, if people still do things like that, that you have to be vaccinated. So visiting players will be exempt from those rules. But it's just showing you how things are sort of changing. Now, in Florida, you have the opposite. Governor DeSantis' office actually issued an edict saying, if you require people to attend to be vaccinated, we will fine you X amount of dollars per day. So it's like the Wild West here. I don't know what's going on. But what we need to do is, and again, I know we step away from the politics and all that. I don't know how this became a political issue. It would seem to me that you would want, as a player, as a fan, as an employee, the safest possible environment and atmosphere. It would seem, this is not political. I'm not a scientist. I don't play one on the Big O show that if you're vaccinated, you would reduce that for everyone. So that's the issue that's going on at hand now. For example, I'm getting ready to travel this season. Obviously, I'm going to be flying commercially a lot. The airlines have yet in this country to invoke you must be vaccinated in order to travel, but certain destinations are. I would feel more comfortable that way simply because if I'm flying to Cleveland on Tuesday and flying to Detroit on Thursday and flying to Chicago on Saturday, I feel a lot more comfortable arriving, talking to Heat players, coaches, people involved, knowing not only am I fully vaccinated, but those I've been around have been fully vaccinated also. So this is going to continue. We've seen this in college football. There have been rules. If one team can't play, it's a forfeit. If both teams can't play in certain conferences, it's a no contest. This is still in play 3 years later. It seems like we have the antidote. It seems like we have the remedy, but it seems like people just aren't accepting that right now. So, yeah, I think we're going to have a fractured sports season in the NBA, the NFL, and in college football. To me, this is not political, chat group people there. This is simply common sense. I want the games played. I want the games played with the best possible players. I want the games played in front of fans to make it seem like sports again and not artificial crowd noise. It would seem to benefit all of that. I don't see where this is political because of this reason. I want every person who attends a game with me at FTX Arena to go home healthy that night, to be healthy the rest of that week, to be healthy the rest of that month. It's not political. I don't want any Big O show listeners to die off. I want a maximum audience. I don't get some of this. Again, not political. It would seem to me just common sense.
I'm with you 100%. And, yesterday or 2 days ago, Josh McCown called out Kirk Cousins because Cousins is an anti-vaxxer and he's the quarterback of the team. And he had actually a very interesting point of view on it. He said, I think this hurts Kurt's ability to lead a football team because he's not doing everything he possibly could to assure himself of being there every week for his team. In fact, he's putting other people at risk and putting their season at risk because, as you know, Ira, there's only 17 games. So you lose a couple of games, it could knock you completely out of the playoffs if you're the Minnesota Vikings. And if you lose Kirk Cousins, that's probably going to happen to you. Not that I think Kirk Cousins is the ultimate difference maker or anything, but he's their best option. And I thought McCown actually had a very interesting point on the leadership side that your number one guy, which is always your quarterback, think about it. He's not vaccinating. Well, then that sends a kind of a bad message to everybody else.
Let's just have the common sense to this. Let's say I was to come down and visit you during an appearance of Acura Pembroke Pines, and I told you I wasn't vaccinated. Wouldn't you keep a greater distance from me than knowing that I am vaccinated? So let's take that into the locker room. If player X is not vaccinated and you're doing that huddle up in the locker room, 1, 2, 3 heat, all of that, I might stand on the other side of the huddle when they're doing the 1, 2, 3 heat. I might not lean in when the coaches are going over the play if I know the guy next to me is not vaccinated and breathing heavily because he just played 6 straight minutes of NBA basketball. So it's not even a matter of the quarterback as a team leader. It's a matter of being around anyone.
I'm with you. Listen, at Onside, I was a hard ass about that. I mean, I had a specific host that would constantly take his damn mask off, and I would come in and say, yo, put your mask on. And he constantly took it off. And it was just one of those things that would piss me off because I have 5 stents in my heart. So, it's for me,
be careful.
It's actually important. Yeah, I gotta definitely be careful. So I thought that was a very interesting thing. We got several things going on in the NBA. Let me ask you something. The Damien Lillard thing. It seems like it's the elephant in the room that we're all talking about. Yet it seems like Damien avoids it. And he has shown his loyalty and no, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay in Portland. But then everybody else is talking about, well, it's only a matter of time. And if you're Portland now, not that you ever want to get rid of Damien Lillard, but you do have to get to a point to say, he's going to get a little too old that we're not going to be able to trade him and we're not winning anything. And you look at the landscape of the West, they're not winning anything. They're not one of the top teams. They're not going to win anything. So whether he wants to leave or not, isn't the reality that the Trailblazers are probably going to have to think about it in the next year or two to make a move?
I think the second part of what you said there, do the Trailblazers have to think about making a move? I don't know if it's a Damian Lillard move. It could be a CJ McCollum move to augment there. Here's the differences between the two primary stories in the NBA right now. Damian Lillard is not happy about not getting out of the first round and not getting deep into the playoffs. We know that. But he's not forcing his team's hand. He has not publicly demanded a trade. That makes it easier for him to exist in the locker room, for his team to maximize potential trades. Ben Simmons is not happy in Philly, has made that clear. Wants out there is forcing a trade. It is a lot easier to be in Portland's situation where, hey, you know what? We might trade him. We might not. We might do something. So you better come with your best offer. This is not distressed property. If the Blazers have to go into the season, they have a new coach, they have a refreshed outlook, not the end of the world. The Sixers right now are totally screwed by Ben Simmons coming out through Keith Pompey and the Philly Inquirer and saying he's not reporting to training camp, that he wants out. You're not going to get dollars on the dollar. You're going to get dimes on the dollar in a trade like that. That's the difference. I think Damien Lillard has been very classy. Everyone knows what he's going through. After a decade in the city, you have the right, sort of like Chris Bosh a few years before that did in Toronto, and said, hey, I'm going to look to play to win right now. I've given my heart and soul to this city at the start of my career. So I think Damien Lillard has handled it in a very classy kind of way. He has not created controversy for his front office. He's just been honest. I want to win. I don't want to go out early in the playoffs. I put too much into this city, into this team. I want more. That's why I think Portland can go, at least to the trading deadline. They can know that they're going to be a competitive team. They've always been a competitive team. They consistently get to the playoffs. The Philadelphia situation, to me, is just crazy. And again, if they lose Ben Simmons, the entire trust the process will come down to Joel Embiid as the only tangible remaining thing from a decade of trying to lose. So I praise Damien Lillard. He is handling it the right way. What's going on in Philadelphia is just another whatever kind of show you want to call it. But what Ben Simmons has done to the Sixers, he basically has paralyzed a franchise.
All right, so let me ask you. All right, so it looks like Portland, for now, they're not doing anything. The Sixers, what is reality now? Because we kind of knew they were trying to trade him. We kind of knew that the asking price was already too much. Nobody's willing to step up. And probably he already knew that he's not being traded because they're probably asking too much. And so now he's pushing the envelope even more by coming out in public. So now this is a real mess out there, and this takes away even more leverage from Philadelphia. How does this end? I mean, because if he's not going to report the training camp, he's not going to be there with the team, and it's now going to start to be incredibly, contentious. So then what do we do? How do they get rid of him, and what is the realistic destination for the young man?
Well, it's interesting. Except for the background reasoning, to me, this very much parallels Deshaun Watson from this standpoint. The ridiculousness of what the Texans have been asking in a trade, those 3 first-round draft choices, the second-round picks, they're asking for the moon. They know they're not going to get it. They seemingly are willing to put him to the side, play their season, see how it plays out. That's fine. The Sixers can't do that. This is a sport where only 5 guys play. You've got to have guys ready to go. You've got to do something with it. So what they have done to this point is they're basically making the Texans ask. They're asking for the world to see what they can get, knowing they're not going to get that anyway. There are teams out there willing to make a deal. The Warriors make sense because they just have their first-round pick from this year. They have their first-round pick from a year ago, Jonathan Wiseman. They have the kind of young talent. But here's a Philadelphia team that just signed Joel Embiid to an extension that, at least from Joel Embiid's standpoint, is in win now. Can you imagine if they ask Joel Embiid to step back into the process? If they tell him, well, we're going to get 2 former first-round picks from the Warriors, we're going to get their next first-round pick, all of a sudden Philly drops from number 3 in the East to maybe number 8 or number 9. And so when I've been doing Ask Ira at sunsetl.com, I've been asking.
By the way, and Ira, I'm sorry, but you also will lose Embiid in the process.
Yes.
Because he's not the guy he's not the guy to maintain. He's not Bam Adebayo that is going to just hunker down, bring the lunch pail, work hard every day, no matter what's around him. This guy will complain about this.
Yeah, and he's shown that all along. So my point being there is, I've sort of asked Heat fans, what do you think about the Ben Simmons thing? Not to the Heat. The Heat do not have the assets to trade for him. God knows don't need another non-shooter in their lineup. There was some friction with Jimmy Butler when they were together in Philadelphia, but my thought is this. If Philadelphia can make a trade for a Damian Lillard, to me, that moves them into that top group in the East. All of a sudden, I think with Embiid and Damian Lillard, you're there with the Nets. You're certainly there with the Milwaukee Bucks. However, if they move Simmons away for a non-immediate contender, Right now I have Philadelphia in sort of a group 1A with the Heat and maybe the Celtics. So you have Milwaukee and Brooklyn clearly at the top. Then I could see Philadelphia, Miami, maybe Boston. But if Philadelphia does not at least make a lateral move with Ben Simmons, if they move him for young players, I think they fall behind maybe Atlanta. Maybe they fall behind the Knicks. All of a sudden, you're talking about a play-in team in Philadelphia. So they can't afford to overplay their hand. They can't afford to go 5, 10, 15, 20 games without Ben Simmons or a Ben Simmons replacement. So I think it's fascinating because from a Heat standpoint, sort of the hierarchy of the Eastern Conference will be at stake because of that.
Ira Winderman, of course, joins us for the Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report twice a week. Make sure you catch him here. Normally, it's Tuesdays and Fridays, but we had to call an audible, so we switched things up. Can you keep a straight face while you're reading the Nerlens Noel story, Ira? And can you explain to people why he is suing Rich Paul for, I believe it's $58 million?
Basically, the money lost when a couple of teams ago, he said he had a better deal on the table. He was told, don't take it. We'll get your money down the road. This is typical of the NBA. Well, it's still a player's ultimate decision. It's still a decision, whether it's your part to go to a different radio station, me, whether to move to a different outlet. We all make decisions sort of forecasting, what do we have now? What might we have next? And to me, the perfect example of this is Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo could have had a $120 million plus contract if he re-upped with the Pacers. He decided not to.
Right.
He wanted to get to where he wanted to. He could have re-upped or extended with the Houston Rockets for $40 million plus last season. He elected not to. Instead, he comes to the Heat. He thinks this is going to be my long-term deal. He gets re-injured, new surgery. So he's out over $100 million. But you make these decisions on your own. To blame an agent who told you, hey, let's slow play this. We'll get you a new contract. Go somewhere else. You play up to your contract. It's still up to the player to decide. Players always are suing agents, saying you promised me you would get something. But it still comes down to your play this year, every year. We just saw it today. Paul Millsap agreed to terms with the Brooklyn Nets. I'm sure he thought he was going to get more than a minimal deal. It happens at the end of free agency. You had a guy like Larry Markkinen had to wait to the end of free agency to get something close to what he thought he would get, but have to go to Cleveland in order to get that kind of contract. So this happens all the time. Players are told by agents, hey, slow play it. I can get you more down the road. The player believes it. That's the player's ultimate choice. Just like, when your stockbroker or your cryptocurrency broker calls you and says you should invest in this, in this, and this. At the end of the day, it's you who make the decide on your investments. Nerlens Noel gambled on his future and lost. It's happened to all of us with various investments. You can blame someone else. People try to claw back at their financial advisor. But at the end of the day, you're in charge of your own destiny.
Ira, they ended up signing one of their young guys, right?
Yes.
What's called the 2-8 deal?
Marcus Garrett. Marcus Garrett was lined up all along. He was terrific in summer league. I compared him to a couple of former Heat prospects. Number one, Patrick Beverley, but also more recently, Briante Weber. A guy, what I always do in summer league is I say this to myself about undrafted players. Do they have an NBA-ready skill right now? So 3 years back, we saw Duncan Robinson in summer league. We said, that guy's an NBA shooter. We'll work on the rest. When I saw Marcus Garrett almost from the get-go, whether it's the Sacramento Summer League or Vegas, he's an NBA-level on-ball defender. He has that right now. Patrick Beverley had that. Briante Weber had that. Then it comes down to what else can you add to the game. We've seen Patrick Beverley's added a three-point shot, made himself a more complete player. This is the perfect two-way scenario. Yeah.
Briante didn't add anything.
No, Briante was great at getting steals and never sort of became the playmaker he had to be at point guard. So Marcus Garrett, under the new two-way rules, can be on the active roster for up to 50 of the 82 games. The Heat this season are restarting after a one-year hiatus. Their G League team, the Sioux Falls Skyforce. There will be developmental time there. And what I like about this signing or agreement, it's going to be signed later today, Big O, is this. The Heat have still left a two-way spot open. Whether it's for competition at training camp, which begins in less than 4 weeks, or whether it's for another player, young player who doesn't make it for another team, they still have the ability. You can carry up to two two-way players. Right now, the Heat have 16 players invited to training camp. You can invite up to 20 players. So we'll still see some names coming in. Devontae Smart was with them in Summer League from LSU. He's going to probably come in, try out for a two-way, maybe for an Exhibit 10 to go to the G League. So the back end of the roster, or as you would say, the Patrick Lairds are getting taken care of right now.
All right. I like it. What are you working on the Sun Sentinel? So, of course, everyone can check you out, my friend.
Well, I'm going to see how the Heat fills out the rest of the roster. I'm kind of curious about the guys they bring in, how they're going to replenish their sort of base there in Sioux Falls and move forward from there. Also, Kyle Lowry did a podcast the other day talking to CJ McCollum about why he came to the Heat. And it was interesting. He said, this is a championship win now team. So he didn't come in here to play just to make the conference finals. He came in here to play to win. I think he is such an MFer in the way he plays that I think between Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, if you don't bring it every minute on the court with his team, you will hear that. So I'm going to do something about Kyle Lowry's attitude, him and Jimmy Butler. You better have thick skin this year if you're going to play for the Miami Heat, because you are going to hear it on a regular basis. You better deal with the criticism, and you better understand this team is pushing straight forward, weren't happy with number 6 last year, have a lot greater expectation this time around.
There you go. He's Ira Winderman. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. Catch him twice a week here. Actually, catch him 3 times a week, but twice with the Acura of Pembroke Pines, Miami Heat, and NBA report. Tomorrow, he will be back for Inside the Paint for 1 hour with Clay Ferraro. Ira, as always, thank you, my friend. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Big O.
You've been listening to the Acura of Pembroke Pines, Miami Heat, and NBA report with Ira Winderman. When you're looking for award-winning service and great deals from the #1 volume Acura sales dealership in the Southeast United States, you go to Craig's Inn Acura of Pembroke Pines at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.